And here we go. Hi, guys. This is Rollo Tomasi. I am the author of The Rational Male, in case you didn't know that. Welcome to my nice little show here today from my new studio, which I still haven't got my backdrop or anything else set up right here. I am waiting, however, for some stuff to go in the back here and make things a little bit interesting. Today's my guest is going to be a man by the name of Marco Russo. He is in Arizona and I am in Nevada, and oddly enough, we are kind of on conflicting time schedules today, simply because they don't have daylight savings in Arizona, which I forgot about. So anyways, what I'm going to do right now is he's running a little bit behind, so he's going to catch up with us here in a little bit. But what I'm going to do for the time being is I'm going to do a quick hit AMA here. And as soon as Mark can join us, he will do so. Today's topic is going to be about being a middle-aged guy and getting yourself back into the dating market. I'll just give you a little bit of background about Mark, and maybe that can sort of kick off the discussion here in the chat. I'll take some questions here in just a bit, but I wanted to fill everybody in on what his story is. Mark was a counsel of mine for, gosh, almost a year now, I think. I've been sort of just helping him out off and on throughout his divorce. Also, just helping him sort of get back into the game after his divorce. He's I think he's been divorced for probably like 4 months now, maybe 5 months now. I'm not really sure. He'll let us know. But one of the things that happened with that whole situation is it inspired him to start a new blog and to help these guys who are a lot like him. Mark is in his 50s, his mid-50s. I'm not going to tell you exactly how old he is, but let's just say he's mid-50s. And he is reinserting himself back into the sexual marketplace at middle age. He'd been married for about 25 years. And he has kind of a unique take on this because one of the things that I'm planning on doing at the 21 convention for the Patriarchs edition is to address the issues and the challenges that guys in this age demographic really have to watch out for. Of course, the first thing he wanted to do was to get back on Tinder and get out there, and I'll let him tell the whole story when he gets on here. But what I wanted to do is just basically focus on what exactly guys, when they get out of a relationship, when they get out of their marriage for however long it is. I mean, usually it's because they've been, with the mother of their kids, and it's a blow, man. It's really tough. I've just been doing a lot of research recently on the connection between divorce and male suicide. And right now, the largest demographic for male suicide is between the ages of 45 and I think 65, or might be like late 50s, early 60s, is the prime demographic for men for divorce, of course, but also for post-divorce suicides, and then also for opioid overdoses or addictions at that time. There was I think it was a documentary. I want to say it was on the BBC that I just saw not too long ago. And for being something on the BBC, they were remarkably sensitive, I think, to this. But they did a documentary on guys in middle America. I think the original story was somewhere in Montana, and just the high incidence of suicide in this age demographic for guys. Most of the time, these guys are what I call zeroed out, and that's really where I wanted to start today. Is because the reason I'm kind of taking an interest in this right now is because I don't want to see guys, kill themselves any more than anybody else does. So one of the things that I see happening is this phenomenon, what I call being zeroed out. You've got these guys who go from being, husbands and fathers, and really kind of following the old social contract with respect to their relationships, with their families, with their work, with their wives. It's kind of like, they're doing what everybody has always told them that they should do. And every time I'm looking in the I'm looking on online, or somebody links me a story, or I just simply see it, with these guys who are killing themselves, or they're killing their wives, or they're killing their kids, or it's all a murder suicide kind of thing. My first my first intention, or my first impression, I guess, is that these guys got zeroed out. And I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm right. I'm right about the impression that I'm getting. Just recently, I forget the guy's name. I think it was Paul Krugman had put this out. He's the economist, Paul Krugman. He had just linked something about one of his friends, this very prominent economist, and the name is not coming to me right off the top of my head. I was just reading it yesterday, but the guy was a lead economist during the Obama administration, and the guy just recently killed himself. And I couldn't find any information about what the guy's personal life was, because according to all the stories that I was reading about this guy, um, and if anybody can look that up for me, I'd really appreciate it. I can't remember the guy's name. I just tweeted it yesterday. It's started with a K. I can't remember. Um, anyways, Alan Kruger. Thank you. Huh, I got the K right. Anyways, um, so I was reading this, and this guy's got a lot going for him. I mean, certainly has money, has a family, been married for a while. Not sure what really happened with the guy. Princeton professor, yeah, exactly. And so, by anybody's account, I mean, even when I was reading the story, the guy was sort of a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, or very talented. Everybody was praising him for being a very smart guy. I mean, say what you will about him being in the Obama administration, but the fact remains, the guy had a lot going for him. And of course, everybody says, "Oh, well, it must be the Clintons. The Clintons, the Clintons offed him." I don't think that. And when I see a suicide like this, my first impression is to think, especially for a guy who's in this demographic. I believe he was 58 years old. This is the prime demographic for guys to kill themselves. And I don't think we're going to talk about this too much with Mark, but when I talk with Mark, it'll be more about the sexual marketplace. But this was one thing I kind of wanted to throw out there, and just to let you guys know what I'm thinking about these days. I'm working on the fourth book. I've got a really, I think, a pretty epic essay that's coming out this week, and then I'm also focusing on this. Men and divorce, and so this is one of the things I'm thinking of. And I didn't want to bring it down too much when Mark came on, so I'll just put this out there now. As I've been focusing on trying to do some sort of, I guess, suicide prevention for these guys, primarily because there's a pattern here. That's when I saw was Alan Krugman, I think is what his name is. When I saw the story about that, it sort of brought me back to center again, I guess. And it's anybody knows, I'm no stranger to suicides. I have my brother-in-law ended up killing himself, hanging himself, because once again the man was zeroed out. And what I mean by zeroed out is you got these guys who build themselves up, and they invest themselves in what I like to call relational equity. And if you've ever read my first book, there's a chapter in there, comes after the my infamous hypergamy doesn't care post. But what relational equity is that most blue pill guys think that the more they invest themselves in being the good guy, in being a good father, in being a good husband, in playing by the rules, and do the rules as they know it, the rules as they've been conditioned to believe, by putting themselves more and more into this, that they earn some sort of equity. And what I mean by that is it's a relational equity. And they think that because they were, at every one of their kids, soccer practices, or every one of their kids, little league baseball games, or their every, school recital, that they went to work every day, and they played by the, like I said, played by the rules of the old social contract. They think that all of that earns them some kind of relational capital. And so that should in some way be an insurance policy against women's hypergamy. And probably in the past, they're not too wrong about that. I think that in the past, that was probably the case. But then once the sexual revolution came around and we started empowering women, and women getting into the workplace, and women being conditioned to believe that they don't need no man, right? It's the feminist byline, never do anything for the express pleasure of a man. Well, also that's the part and parcel, I guess, of the strong independent woman narrative. And what that means is that you are independent of men. And so when you see this generation, it's a generational shift of women kind of maybe getting married in the old set of beliefs, under the auspices of the old social contract, and then being conditioned later on socially to think something different. I talk about this quite a bit with Dalrock when we talk about the eat, pray, love dynamic, where women are sold on the divorce porn ideals. And what that means is that the grass is greener on the other side. So basically, there's no reason for you not to divorce your husband for cash and prizes. He'll be there to support you while you can be independent of men. You can be strong and independent away from that guy. And so there's this encouragement to believe that as a woman, you will live a better life if you would just simply divorce your husband. And then you could fly off to Jamaica and find a new lover and live happily ever after. Of course, if you know anything about the author of Eat, Pray, Love, she's been through some pretty damning divorces herself. But that's not the point. The point is that that's a fantasy that's being sold. But so anyways, you got a guy who is wrapped up in this and has invested himself in his relationship. These are the guys who play by one side of their own sexual strategy. There's for men, there's what this is what I like to think of anyways. For men, there is what's called the strategic pluralism theory. And what that means is that guys who are lower on the sexual market value scale tend to change their sexual strategy to adapt to them being lower in SMV. And what that means is that a man is lower in his SMV, he will tend to focus more on monogamy. He will tend to focus himself more on one woman, or one woman at a time. Whereas if a man who's more, let's just say, relatively alpha, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean he's actually thinks that, but a guy who has more, he's higher on the sexual market value scale, he's in that 20th percentile, whereas the lower SMV would be in the 80th percentile. You got a guy who is in that 20th percentile, that guy has more access, okay, he has more access to more women. And so his sexual strategy is different than, say, the guy who can't afford not to invest himself in just one woman. And so you've got an 80% of I'm just going to throw this out there, just as beta men, 80% of them have a certain sexual strategy that would be the strategy of the 20th percentile. Now, for men's basic sexual strategy, it's unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. Okay, but not all men can employ that. Only the top 20th percentile can really employ that with any kind of efficiency, I guess. And that just because a guy is in that 20th percentile does not necessarily mean that he's going to do that, because we have social conventions that are constantly the blue pill is constantly trying to condition men to adopt the socially enforced monogamy strategy, which is what the 80th percentile of men tend to go for. Well, those 80th percentile men get into a really vicious game, And that vicious game is this, is that they get to be about 30 years old, and then suddenly the women who wouldn't have anything to do with them, and we've talked about this, Pat and I have talked about this before, that's when they become a little bit more attractive to women, because they are a better long-term prospect for women whose sexual market value is decaying. So they get into those relationships with those women, and then they have children, they have a family, and then that woman discovers that that guy is not as exciting as the alpha lovers that she had back in her 20s and into her party years. So what happens then is that these guys who have invested themselves just very, very deeply in their sexual strategy, which is, of course, it's based on relational equity, and it's based on monogamy. And when that woman at a later age, and by later, I'm just going to say between like 38 and 40 years old, when she decides that she wants to exit the marriage before she believes she won't be able to capitalize on her looks anymore, which is kind of ridiculous to begin with, but this is the mentality, though. So she believes that she needs to cash out of that relationship, or cash out of that marriage. What happens is this guy's whole world is shattered. Now, I'm relating this because this is very close to the same pattern or the same script that my brother-in-law followed. Just to catch everybody up on this, my brother-in-law was never went to college. We finished high school and everything, but he ended up getting my sister-in-law pregnant when she was about 18 or 19 years old, and everybody thought that the guy was going to bail. Everybody thought, okay, he's done. He's not going to show. Well, he did the right thing, right? That's what we always say. He's got to do the right thing. So he manned up and he married her, and he became the father, and he busted his ass for, from the time he was about 20 years old until he killed himself right at 40 years old, trying to do the right thing, trying to play by the rules that everybody told him that these are the rules that you should be playing, and had a great place, built himself up from scratch, from nothing. Never went to college, but still built up his own business, which it was a property management business. Had enough money to at least start at the time of his death, to start sending his kids to college. And was actually building a house on a property that he managed to buy at the time. And of course, my sister-in-law decided that she wanted to trade that in. She wanted to trade it in for a better deal, which was a man who was a lot more wealthy. Let's just say, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but anyways. The point I'm making here is that this guy, and this is the script that I'm talking about here, is this guy built himself a life based on the assumption that all of what he was doing, and all of the energy and the effort and the time and the money, and just basically starting with nothing and building him into something, was going to be something that was going to be appreciated in the long run. That was, it's relational equity. I build myself into this. I start from nothing, and I build myself up. But as Rich Cooper likes to say, is women don't care about the struggle, and they only care about the winners. Okay, they wait at the finish line and they have sex with the winners. That's what they do. And if a better situation comes along, I'm not saying that all women do this, but all women can do this. So it's an option, and that's why when I'm talking about these things, and when I talk about being zeroed out, because this is exactly what I'm thinking might have went on with that what the hell is his name now? Craig Kruger. What the hell is this guy's name? Sorry, my bad. Again, if you're just joining us right now, I'm waiting for my friend Mark to come on. It will probably be another like 15 or 20 minutes before he does. Kruger, there it is. Kruger. So anyways, I was a little concerned about the reasons behind that suicide, and this is the pattern that I see all the time. And I think that a lot of guys, when they get into a relationship, when they get into a marriage, and they build that marriage based on what they believe is relational equity, or a relational investment, they think that is in some way going to insulate them against their wife's hypergamy. There are other ways there are other contingencies, I should say, for hypergamy within marriage, but Most blue pill guys never really come to that. They're either too wrapped up in whatever's going on in their family, or they're too wrapped up in a dead bedroom, or they're too wrapped up in trying to solve the problem that is their wives at that time. And so what happens is, when these guys find out that their wives cheated on them, when they find out that maybe it's not even that, maybe it's just the wife says, you know what, I'm done with this marriage, I'm finished. And usually, of course, it's right around middle age, right around 45, maybe even earlier than that. But let's just say, okay, let's just say 40 to 60, somewhere in that 20-year range. That's when guys have it's not just being zeroed out, but it's having their belief sets zeroed out. And what I mean by that is that they thought that all of that relational equity would have insured them against what is happening to them. So not only are they being zeroed out financially, not only are they being zeroed out family-wise, because Lord only knows who's going to get the kids, and even still, when you look at the relationships between men and women and women, whenever a woman is in a divorce, and remember, women initiate divorce at 70% of the time. Okay, so was it 7 in 10 divorces are initiated by a woman? Okay, so what are the incentives for that? Well, of course, there's monetary incentives, but there's also this fantasy incentive that they're going to live a better life without the guy that they're with. Now, is that the case in all of those situations? No, of course not. But I would say that in the cases of guys who commit suicide, there is, and I've been reading up on several researches on this as far back as I think it's 2009, between the link between divorce and suicide, or infidelity and suicide, or infidelity and murder suicides, like killing your wife and killing your kids, that kind of thing. And of course, what do we want to do? We want to blame it. Oh, well, it's masculinity, or it's because these guys are being held to these unrealistic masculine ideals, which is bullshit. Okay, what these guys are doing is they're deciding for themselves whether or not they want to live, because they're faced with being zeroed out and having to rebuild their lives after having built up their lives for as long as they have. They're facing this rebuilding when they've been reduced to zero, and they say, okay, do I want to keep going? I've got, maybe I'm 45 years old. How long is it going to take me to rebuild myself back into the position that I was in? Right. And if you've got a guy who is very blue pill conditioned, if you got a guy who believed in all of those blue pill fantasies, this is one of the reasons why I tell guys that it's very important, whether you're married or you're not, to kill the beta. Okay, to kill that blue pill, unlearn that blue pill conditioning, because it's very dangerous at this point, because this is where guys get zeroed out. This is where guys get despondent, right? So they believe that all of the stuff that they have worked for their entire life has just been reduced to nothing. Has just been erased. So if you, I'm going to use my brother-in-law once again. If you got a guy who's been from 20 years old to 40 years old, and all that 20 years where he invested himself and made all of those sacrifices and built himself up and built his family up in the belief that he was doing the right thing, all that's erased, all that's gone. What does a guy do? Well, he has two choices. He can start over again and rebuild with whatever he has, assuming he has he's got the ass in his britches to do so, to pull up his boots and go, or kill himself, or say, you know what, let's just hit the reset button, and I want to go, and I just want to die. Right? Most guys are doing that right now. Most guys, when they get to in that position, it's either that, or they resort to alcoholism, or they resort to opioid abuse, or they just simply kill themselves. So that's, I hate to make this a downer here. I got some super chats. Thank you very much. I'll answer these right now because I am taking questions. Rolo, sorry, this is Martin Van Ball. I don't know what an SEK is, but thank you for the 50 of whatever that is. 50 Scooby snacks. Okay, Rolo, your thoughts about girlfriends' wives who seek attention all the time. What should we do in this case? My girlfriend is an attention seeker, and I got tired, or you probably still do get tired. Well, let's see. There's a reason why. Well, let's just rewind this really quickly. All women are attention seekers, okay? And the reason that they are attention seekers is because attention is the coin of the realm in girl world, okay? That's how, when we talk about, when I talk about dominance hierarchies or competence hierarchies, when I'm talking about that kind of between men, that's pretty easy because we think about things in terms of meritocracy. But that's to think that attention or just garnering attention would in any way be a measurement of that hierarchy is kind of like a alien thought to us. But that is exactly how women think when it comes to establishing their pecking order within their peer group, within their collectivist, social group. In psychology, it's called the peer clutch. Okay, so within their peer clutch, that is how women establish hierarchy. And so certain attentions, the attention drawn by certain things is more valuable than others. So if you're a beta guy, that's why women have beta orbiters. It's a cheap source of attention because thirsty betas are really happy to just go give it up no matter what, right? Because they don't understand that scarcity drives the price up, right? They don't understand that 48 laws of power. They don't understand that. But the thing is what they don't get is because they want to believe that men and women are just the same, and that if a woman is seeking attention in some way, that must be some evidence of her being damaged or something. No, it's not. That's just how women are. Women need attention. Women need two things in life. They need attention and they need indignation, because both of those feelings, both of the emotions that come from those trigger certain parts of their physiology. Like they hit you get a dopamine hit in a different way, right? I mean, if you go and you look at the studies here, men and women process emotions differently. But what is emotions? What does emotion trigger, and how, or what is that emotion a result of, right? When we talk about like roid rage or something like that, that's a testosterone triggers or prompts certain feelings, right? Aggression, anger, sexual desire, that kind of stuff. Well, what is triggered by indignation in a woman? What is triggered by attention in a woman? And I would argue that there's a chemical connection between women getting attention and their need to garner that. So what do you do? So first of all, let's just say this: most women are interested in attention in some ways. Okay, women don't get up in the morning and put makeup on just because they just feel like putting makeup on. There is an expectation of them to try to get attention. I mean, when you see a woman who's got fuchsia hair, and she's got that whatever that septum piercing is, and when you got all this kind of she's got tattoos or something like that, and people will say, well, she's just expressing her natural personhood. No, it's not. It's a call for attention. It's look at me. Everybody really wants to be special, right? But like when it comes to women, that is how they establish that dominance hierarchy. So if your girlfriend is seeking attention all the time, you have to ask yourself, why is she seeking that attention? What is it that's driving? She's doing it more so than anything else. Usually, when in this day and age, because we have Instagram, because we have social media, we have this instant gratification for women. It's this instantaneous pull, right? I think I forget the guy. I think his name is Jaron Lanier. He's this guy who kind of a weird cat, but he has this one book where he was drawing his conclusions that like social media is comparable to like a gambling addiction, right? So if you're looking for the next like on your Instagram, or if you're looking for the next message, or the next post on your Twitter, right? You're pulling it down, kind of thing. Well, it's the same thing as like it's the same dopamine hit that you would get as if you were like playing a video poker machine or a video slots machine. It's that hope for whatever the next thing's coming. Well, think about that. Okay, think about how women can take their need for attention and then apply it over in an age of technology where that's instantaneous now, and yet she's still seeking attention on top of all of that. So I think what you really have to do is determine why she's doing that. More often than not, it's because your attention is worthless to her. Now, you're saying that this is your girlfriend. That's kind of, I think really the best place to start is, what is her behavior telling you? What is the medium, right? What the medium is the message. What is her medium telling you? What is the message that you're getting from how she's behaving? If she's doing that all the time, then maybe you need to sort of reassess what your relationship should be with that person. So let me see here. God, man, my voice is starting to go. Let's see. Oh, okay. Cooper Ritchie. Just wanted to thank you for all your work. Your books have added a lot of value in my life and will add lots of value to my future children. Thank you. Well, thank you too, Cooper Ritchie. One of the reasons I wanted to do the 21 convention for the Patriarchs edition is because I had so many guys hitting me up, asking me, "Hey, when's the best time to when's the best time to turn my kids on, or turn my sons on to the Rational Male?" And they're saying, "Oh yeah, how about when he's 10? How about when he's 15 or whatever?" I'm like, I'm glad you're excited. I really am, but doing that at that early an age is, I think it's more important that you model the behaviors that are red pill aware, so that he can see and ask his own questions and come to it on his own naturally than anything else. But thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Let's see. What else do we have here? Red Man Anon. Hey, man. Pat said last time looks are superficial. It was kind of, here we go with the looks thing again. It was kind of messed up. False info. Glad you checked him on that. He seems to be a little purple pill. Well, you got to look at where Pat is. I love Pat to death, but Pat has been a family man for a very long time, and a lot of this stuff is new to him. That's one of the reasons why we work so well together, I think, because he asks the right questions. And I think that in his asking questions, a lot of other people can get educated for that. It's not like I was trying to school Pat or anything. It's just that, you know, Pat used to be very tradcon, and I think that maybe in some respects he's still kind of, I don't think he is still tradcon. I think he's certainly away from that, but I think he still asks the same questions that tradcons do. So when it comes to looks, I think I kind of get raked over the coals for this, because a lot of the guys in the PUA set think that it's all game. It's 100% game. Everything that you do, it doesn't matter what you look like. You can be a fat, ginger, RSD. you can look like Owen from RSD and still get laid. You could still go and do all that stuff. And I'm not saying that I haven't seen some pretty incredible things, but I'm not at the point where I'm going to say that it's all game or that it's all one thing. Usually when it comes to arousal and then later attraction, most guys they gross out, or they go to the binary extreme on three different things. That's looks, affluence, meaning money and status, and then game. Okay. So looks, affluence, and game. Okay. I always say have two of those. If you can have three, that's the best. But if you can only have one, game is the most important. Okay. The reason I say game is most important, because social intelligence will carry you for a lot longer than certainly than money, and certainly than looks. Okay. Looks will get you in the door. But if you're making up, like a lot of guys will do this, they'll gross out on one thing. Like I just, like, guys are telling me, "Oh yeah, you need to looks max." Like looks max, right? So you have to basically just gross out as much as you possibly can on your looks, right? Be in the gym, live in the gym, and then there's the guys who are just game. I'm just going to throw that game max, right? It's all just nothing but game. And then the other guys are like, "You guys are both wrong. All you got to do is make a shit ton of money, and then you get the girl," right? I mean, that's the Tony Montana thing. You get the money, you get the power, then you get the girl, right? That's what they think. I think that all of those are covering for different deficits. So if you had a whole ton of money, yeah, you can cover for a lot. That makes up for a lot of game sins, and it makes up for a lot of look sins. But then you get into a position like Jeff Bezos is in right now, right? If Jeff Bezos didn't have any money, would he be getting laid? Probably not, right? And then look who he chooses, because look who Jeff Bezos chooses to be his mistress, right? A chick, because he feels like if he doesn't go for a girl who's in his peer age, then that makes him a misogynist. That makes him feel. So the evidence of his mindset is manifested in who he chose as his mistress. Right? He didn't. I mean, the guy is like one of the rich, I think, if not the richest guy in the world. Why is he not living like Dan Blitzerian? Why does he choose not to do that? He could very easily. He could have said, okay, see you later, Mackenzie. I'm going to go live like Dan. I'm going to go and live happily ever after and never have to do a damn thing in his life. Right? He could go do that, but he doesn't. Why doesn't he do that? Well, because his mindset is very much blue pill. So even if you have like really you're high SMV, you're high in looks, if your mindset is defeating your looks, then you have a deficit. So if you have a lot of like I tell guys this all the time, the time that I got laid the most in my life was when I was at my poorest. Like I had a beat up pickup truck. I had some amps and a guitar and a 1-bedroom studio apartment in North Hollywood back in 89, 90, somewhere around there. And that was a time in my life where I had more women coming to me to have sex with me. Now, it wasn't because I had money. It wasn't necessarily because I had status, because I didn't really have much status other than the fact that I had pre-selection because I was a character. I had long blonde hair down to my ass at the time, and women wanted that rock star look and they wanted to have sex with that guy, right? And it didn't matter whether I was actually that dude or not. It was just that was the role that I was playing. Being women are like casting agents, right? They want they want to experience that one, the tough brother from the streets, or the rock star, or the guy who looks like the dude from The Cure, or whatever. That they want that experience, or they whatever that particular ideal is for them. I'm not really sure what that ideal is for women of the millennial age. Maybe somebody can correct me on that and let me know. But to gross out on looks, I think that looks will definitely get you far, right? Looks will also cover a multitude of sins. So if you don't have a lot of money, and maybe you don't even have a lot of game, but you're very good looking, women are still going to want to sleep with you because you look like the dude in the hot fireman calendar that she has on her wall in her cubicle. All right. So you have to understand that there's that balance. Like I said, a lot of guys think it's all about money or think it's all about game. I think there needs to be a balance between those things. Let me see what else we got going here. Anybody else? You don't necessarily have to give me a super chat for me to answer your question. I will be happy to look. Do I get laid 10 times a day? No. What's funny is I think that I stopped keeping tabs on like sexual frequency early on in my relationship with my wife, because there was a time where I thought, man, I better be having sex like 4 or 5 times a week, or this relationship's going nowhere. I don't think that way anymore. I think that I would rather have sex like 2 or 3 times a week and have it really good and really intense than just have like lackluster sex 7 times a week, right? So I think that guys kind of I think it's a mistake to do that, because what happens is guys will think they keep a tally of how many times that they're having sex with their wives, and if they don't have it at a certain number, then that means that there's evidence of something that's wrong with the relationship. Well, logistically, sometimes you just can't. Maybe if I'm getting a blowjob, it'll be fine, right? But it's I think that here's a trick for married guys, by the way. If you stop doing that, if you stop saying, okay, we better have sex X amount of times or I'm done, just say, okay, hey, you still initiate sex, or wait for her to initiate sex. Still do that and see how it goes, right? And don't say we better have it this many times or we're done, but let that happen, because what you're doing is you're instilling dread. You're instilling a form of passive dread when you do that. When you say, okay, you know what? We'll have sex whenever you want to have sex. We'll have a go at it, whenever you feel like it, or I'll initiate sex, and if you're not into it, okay, fine, and then let that sit, and then let that go. Because what happens is she's thinking, what is this guy thinking, right? This works great too, by the way, if you just become awakened while married and you start going to the gym more, you start hitting the gym, but you're not saying, hey man, you don't tell your wife, hey, I'm getting in shape for you, baby. No, you don't say stuff like that. You just go and you do it, and you let her figure it out for herself. Iron Rule of Tomasi number 8 is never the short version of it is never help a woman figure out why she doesn't want to have sex with you. Let her figure that on her own. So what that means is don't self-defeat. Don't don't seem like a whiny pussy, right? Seem like a guy who has options, or a guy who could generate options. It's passive dread. I'm always an advocate of passive dread over overt dread. I know some guys will say, well, you sometimes just got to put your foot down. Da, 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 da. Well, okay, fine, but what that is that's you coming up with the idea rather than her coming up with the idea, because a woman's imagination is the best tool in your game toolbox. Let's see what else here. I'm sorry. There's a ton of people in the chat, so I have to. And let's see, what time is it? Mark's on his way. He was texting me, so I know he's coming here. Just sorry. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Let's see. Okay, this is good. Arthur, Rolo, I have a question. Why don't women acknowledge or respect the process? I think what you mean is what I was just talking about a minute ago about the struggle. I'll tell you exactly why that is. And this is actually a very good question, because I've been writing about this not too long ago, when I was talking about the existential fear. Okay, this is going to get a little detailed, sorry. Why don't women appreciate the process? Why don't they appreciate the work? Okay, they can't appreciate the work, and they can't because they don't have time to. Okay, one of the reasons why women tend to be more attracted, I didn't say aroused, I said attracted to guys who are anywhere between 5 and 7 years older than them, is because they are more established. I was just reading, I think it was Joe Rogan just put this out there too. He linked to this story, I think it was a BBC, saying that men and women today don't become adults until they're 30, which I think is laughable, because I think adulthood really depends on what that particular society and the environment expects of individuals at that time. I think that's ridiculous, but I think it's interesting because I've always joked that men don't become men until they're 30. Well, why is that? Because it takes longer for them to establish themselves. Whether that's 30 or that's 25 or that's 20, whatever, it takes a lot longer for men to reach their sexual market value peak than it does for women. Women, if they stay in good shape, they don't eat like a pig, they make themselves feminine, they are semi-attractive, they're going to be able to maximize their sexual market value peak years, and they can do it a whole lot quicker. Women mature faster, and I mean by mature, I mean in many different aspects. I'm not just saying mentally or whatever, physically mature faster than boys do, right? When a woman gets to be, or a girl gets to be about 13, 14 years old, she's got boobs, and suddenly she's a woman, right? That's why we used to have quinceañeras, or I think we probably still do have quinceañeras. A woman becomes a woman at 15 years old, or we have a bar mitzvah where we say, oh, a boy at, I think it's 14, becomes a man at 14, right? Which now we think it's laughable right now, but there's a reason for those rituals and those coming of age rituals, because we needed to have this delineation between where a man was a man and a woman was a woman. But the long and the short of it is this, is that it takes longer for a man to mature into a guy who has into his career, into his physique, into his understanding about the world. It takes longer for a guy to establish himself as his peak potential than it does for a woman, because for a woman, men and women are different. Okay, women's potential value usually comes right around 23, 24 years old. Men's comes later on. I've always pegged this right around the mid 30s somewhere. But why is that? Why do they look for that? Well, because women understand this. Their hindbrains know that their sexual market value has a shelf life. Okay, it is perishable. I'm not talking about their personal worth. Okay, I'm talking about their sexual market value. It is a decaying asset. Okay, so at the time that a woman's sexual market value is coming down, that's when a man is going up. Okay, so it's right at that point, right? And I always peg this as a woman's epiphany phase, right around 29 to 31 years old. That we always talk about that as the epiphany phase for women, because they're really on their downswing in earnest, right? But one thing we don't talk about is that men's peak potential is on its ascent at that point. And I don't think we pay enough attention to the ascent part, or that meeting of her on her decline and you on your ascent. Well, why is that? Why don't they appreciate the struggle? Well, it's because hypergamy cannot afford to take chances. It can't afford to invest and take a bet on whether or not that guy is actually going to reach his peak potential. So when a woman wants a guy who's like, 5 to 7 years older, or wants a guy who is, the women always, they love to say, I need a guy who's my equal, right? No, they don't want, hypergamy doesn't seek its own level. It seeks better than its own merited level. Okay, so if a woman is an SMV 5, she's looking for a guy who's a 6, 7, 8, or 9, somewhere around there. Okay, how you rate that, it might be subjective. I think it happens to be a little bit more objective than people want to say, but let's just say, according to her, she's not looking for somebody who's at her same level, and she's sure shit not looking for somebody who is lower than she is. She's looking for a guy that's above that. Well, she can't appreciate what that guy had to go through to become that, because her hypergamy can't wait. That's why women want a guy who is good. Well, we just talked about, she want a guy who's good looking, affluent, has status, and also is funny and has great personality and has game. They want all three of those characteristics. Well, to get all those takes a long time for a guy. If some guys never get in, might not ever have any of those, let alone 1, 2, or 3 of those. So from a purely Darwinistic perspective, hypergamy can't wait. It can't appreciate that struggle, because it needs what it needs right then and there, because breeding takes place in relatively over a course of a lifetime. Breeding takes place in a blink of an eye. And so women's hypergamous filters have to be very attuned, and they can't appreciate that struggle, because they can only think about their decaying asset, right? That's why we say, women's only real agency with men is their sexuality. And so when that agency begins to decline, she might, if she doesn't jump on it, if she's making a bet on a guy's future, that bet might not ever pay off. So she can't care about that. She can only care about herself. And then the other part of that equation is women's solipsism. And women's solipsism also is a part of that, a part of the, as an aspect, I should say, of hypergamy not being able to wait. It can't afford to wait, because if it makes a bad bet on a guy, she might be screwed for the rest of her life. She might be done. Like, oh, I thought this guy was going to turn into a millionaire. I thought this guy was going to be better than he was. That's why women don't like marry the alpha bad boy, because they can't tame the guy. Well, they can't tame the guy, and they can't get the guy in their 20s to commit. And that's why when they get to their epiphany phase, they have to make really tough choices. That's why there's this war that goes on in a woman's head between her id and her ego. The id still wants to have fun with the bad boy, but that bad boy is a bad long-term bet for her. But the guy who's a good long-term bet, he's kind of boring, and I don't really want to have sex with him because he's not all that hot and he's not as fun as this guy is. If we could just get him to commit, right? And that's why women wait longer and longer and longer in life to have kids and to start a family, because they think that they have the luxury of waiting to see if this guy is going to come around, the alpha guy is going to come around, and yet they never do, because as soon as that guy does come around, he turns into beta boring guy. He's Superman here, but then he becomes Clark Kent after 30, and it's kind of like this really tough position that women are in when it comes to that, because there's, like I said, there's this internal conflict that goes along with that too. But that's the primary reason. The primary reason is hypergamy can't wait, and because it can't wait, it can't afford to even care about what that struggle is. It just needs to know that you're a winner right then and there. Let's see. I got a $20. Thank you very much, Mike, man. What does it mean when a girl contacts a guy first and then immediately acts uninterested when communicating with him? Is she playing a game, or does she automatically expect a chase? I'm going to refer you, because I know Mark's coming on here in just a second. I'm going to refer you to a post that I have, and I'll put it up here in just a second. I have a post called Coquetry. No, that's what you're referring to. It is something that you can probably learn a little bit more about in Robert Greene's book, The Art of Seduction. There's the coquette as one of the archetypes. It's like she's hot and she's cold, right? I mean, she plays all hot with you and then she turns it off. That is interesting to me because this is exactly the takeaway. Okay, hold on. I got Mike hitting me up here. Hang on. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Okay, Mark's coming up here in just a moment. All right, he is coming in here just a second. Oh, anyways, as far as the coquetry is concerned, women will play that game. Okay, great. I got Mark. Marco, are you there?
I am here.
Awesome. Okay, good. And your video's off, so that's fine. Marco prizes his anonymity, so that's what we're going to go ahead. So I've been doing this for almost an hour, right? Okay, cool. All right. So, anyways, now we're going to start the show in earnest. Marco, why don't you introduce yourself and let everybody know about your blog and just how you and I know each other.
Marco Russo, met Rolo a while back, became good friends, kind of worked together a little bit. For sure, he's been a good coach to me and kind of helping me navigate the marketplace as well as me experiencing it on my own. I just purchased a domain name, so hopefully it's going to forward. It's www.divorced50.com.
Cool.
So if people want to check out the blog, it's divorced50.com. I'm a 55-year-old man that was married for 24 years and with the same woman for 25 years and hit the marketplace full force about 6 or 7 months ago. I've been legally divorced for a couple of months, but hit the market hard about 6 months ago. So lots of life lessons. I think I probably went 100 miles an hour faster than most men would go, but that's how I roll.
Yeah, I was going to say your story is not the average story. Because and you can fill us in on this too, but you're in pretty good shape. I've seen your pictures and I know what you're all about.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good for. Well, you know what's funny is like everybody. I hate saying that because like a lot of guys, you'll say, oh, you look pretty good for being, mid 50s, right? You look a lot younger than mid 50s.
Thank you.
And then you you have a do you work in fitness in some way? Is that why? I mean, I know you're always in the gym and everything. Is that your thing, or was that your thing for a while?
That was my thing for a long time. I was a personal trainer back in the day, and was for over 20 years. And then before that, I was an elite Olympic athlete before that. So and I've maintained. I think my body weight hasn't fluctuated 3 pounds my whole entire life. So yeah, I would say I'm in the upper 1% of fitness for sure.
Okay. Cool. So, how long have you been in, let's just say, the sexual marketplace? How long have you been dating right now?
I would say about 6 months, probably hardcore.
Okay. And what has been like, okay, when you were dating your wife, your now ex-wife, what year was that when you were dating her?
1994.
Okay.
is when we met.
Okay, so 1994. So I'll take it like 92, 93 was the sexual marketplace for you back. That was to you, that was your most recent one besides now, right?
Yes, okay. So a long time ago.
Okay, so there was no internet, there were no cell phones.
Oh,
I know. Yeah, I went through the same thing. I know exactly
just bars.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you this: when you when you got, I was on here before you came on. I was talking about guys getting zeroed out. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
for most guys, the divorce process is something that kind of jumps up on them, and it takes them by surprise, right? Or maybe it's not surprise, maybe it's just this kind of like slow death, but they just don't want to accept that they're actually going to be zeroed out. And so they get to a point where they're surprised by this because they think that their investment in the sexual marketplace, or their investment in their marriage, is going to be a kind of like an insurance policy against what is actually happening to them. So when you got out of your marriage, like you're a little bit different, because was it you that initiated the divorce?
It was a tumultuous marriage to last probably 7 or 8 years, and I was just in a real dark place for quite a while,
Mm-hmm.
and just focused on my business, focused on kind of me, even though we had kids. But I would say it was amicable, but I threatened divorce on her a lot of times, and she finally served me papers. So she was
Mm-hmm.
the one that served me after me threatening her, 100 times probably.
Mm-hmm.
So very tumultuous.
Okay. So, and the reason I'm throwing this out there is because I want to just get a little bit of context here. So it's tumultuous. Were you like, was it kind of like a dead bedroom situation for a while? Was it a sexless marriage for the last like
Oh
few
yeah,
years?
not few years. I would say probably the last 6 months to a year. I wouldn't have gone years. No way. I'm
Hmm.
too much of an alpha to go years. That's for
Okay.
sure. But I would say about the last 6 months, we were in separate bedrooms and we were passing each other in the hallway. It was ridiculous. I mean,
Hmm.
we were full blown roommates, and yet I was paying all the bills. So
Hmm.
there you go.
So, and did her attitude towards you change after the divorce, or after you'd moved out and you were separated?
That was an interesting time. I think for me, I'm a very self-reflective man, and I own my shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the few men that I've heard that really owns his shit. So when I first moved out, I did a lot of self-reflection and thought, man, I really fucked this marriage up. And so I spent a couple of months, and I think that was about the time you and I started working together.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not quite that.
Yeah, you were still married when I met you.
Yeah, right. It
Um,
wasn't legal. I was
yeah.
separated. I was separated. I was living on my own when you and I started working together. So
Mhm.
I would definitely say the first 6 months, I almost was sort of trying to get her back because I think it was the white knight in me,
Mhm.
that sense of, man, you really fucked it up. Go fix it. Go
Mhm.
fix it. And yet she was in a place of zero self reflection, zero self improvement, really the maturity of probably a teenager, honestly. And I realized real quickly that I don't want to go back to that. I don't
Mhm.
want to go back to that.
So there was an initial time when you thought you could put it back together, when you really wanted to. Because was it because of a comfort thing? Like, you just like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. I would rather just try to fix my situation with her than to face going out into this new sexual marketplace.
That might have been a small part of it, but I think a big part of it was me truly being sort of a chivalrous man where I thought I'm going to fix this thing. I mean, she's good looking, she's super fit, come on, just go fix this thing. So, but I think part of it might have been just once the novelty of moving into my apartment in a really nice area and a great location, all brand new furniture, my bachelor life was set. I had a buddy, this is a great story, married buddy of mine helped me move in, and he walked out on my deck and he goes, "If you don't get a fucking blowjob in the first week in this place, I'm gonna shoot you." Was his comment to me because it's quite the bachelor pad. It's
Mhm.
it's it's a cool little pad, but I would say within about a month, I wasn't ready to go out in the marketplace yet.
Mhm.
I just wasn't because I wasn't over her. I wasn't over all the self reflection. So I think, but I didn't like the boredom. I didn't like the loneliness. I didn't
Mhm.
like all day and every day in my apartment, because I've got my own business, so I can work my business from wherever I want. And that was built by design, but just didn't like that sense of nothing going on in my life personally.
Hmm. And so like not having that day to day, was it like a routine thing that you were trying to get used to? Or was it more like you felt like you'd been zeroed out? Because I don't think you really got zeroed out all that
No,
much.
no, no. I don't think I get zeroed out. I think it probably was partly routine, and just I can let a lot fill my head. I've got a vivid imagination. I'm an ADD guy, so I can operate on 20 thoughts in my brain at one time. So
Mhm.
I think with all that going on, I didn't like sitting still.
Mhm. Okay. So when you got back in, like how long was it after your divorce that you finally like decided to start dating or to start at least opening yourself up to that? How long did it take?
Well, I started dating while we were not legally divorced, right? I was 6 months into the separation of moving out, 4 to 6 months in, where I finally realized this girl isn't gonna, she's not gonna improve on her own personal self. I'm out of here. It's not gonna work. So I would say 6 months in, we're still going through the divorce process. I was separated, and that's a whole nother story of going on a few dates off of some websites. And one girl, very very attractive girl, and we hit it off very well. She, on the second date, in between us kissing and hugging in a bar,
Mhm.
she dropped the gauntlet and just says, "I really need to know, are you divorced?"
Mhm.
And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" And her face went from a big white smile to, she
Mhm.
goes, "You know what I mean." And I said, "Well, the ink isn't dry yet." And she just went ballistic. She
Hmm.
was very, very upset, ended the date, and that was it. And I haven't seen her since. And she was very, very attractive. She would have been one that would have been a very good plate for me for sure.
Mhm. So, so you had that experience. So I just getting on to like getting into the marketplace
Yeah.
now. So first thing you did, if I recall right, is you got on Tinder. That was your first impulse to do that, or was it OK Cupid or something like that? Were you're trying to do it online?
Oh, definitely trying to do it online because I wanted to go at warp speed.
Mhm.
I didn't want to wait for this organic, go to Whole Foods, meet some cute girl, approach her, get denied, get her, whatever. I didn't want to wait that long. And so I thought, well, shit, I'm on my computer, get on, or on my phone, get on Tinder. So I went on Tinder and posted a couple of kind of quote physique shots, but I put my real age. And I
Mhm.
think that killed me right there. And that I think across the board on all the dating sites, putting my real age, even with my picture showing me the way I look, I think a lot of women are stuck on that on number for sure, for
Mhm.
sure.
So, on average, I get just a mean average. Like, can you give me like a demographic of like the age range of women that you're looking at right now, or that respond to you?
I would say I'm 55, so I would say, well, I dated a 40-year-old Latina girl for a while, for about 4.5 months, 5 months, and she was 40, specifically looking for a mature man. Wasn't looking for a sugar daddy because I'm not all about that.
Mhm.
But so I dated a 40-year-old for a while. Then I went out with another Latina again that was 46. I would say my wheelhouse is kind of mid to late 40s, probably.
Mhm.
I'm not one of these guys. I mean, could I push it and get into the 30s? Yeah, but most of the women in the 30s have young kids, and I don't want to be dad again. I've done that role. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question here. You're so you're primarily looking online. Did you have to have you? I know I've talked to you about this before, but have you tried to redevelop a new kind of social circle, like a new friend circle? Because I think that's one of the things that guys, particularly in your age range, struggle with, is having like a social circle of guy friends. Because most guy, I mean, there's been tons of articles that have been written about this, about how guys are just like end up when they get to be your age, when they get, well, actually even younger than your age, when they get to be about 45 to 55 years old, that suddenly they lose touch with their friends, or they don't have any kind of relationships outside of like their personal ones with their wife or whatever. And so suddenly they have that taken away from them, and now they're alone. So have you developed anything beyond what you had before your marriage? Just as far as friendships and stuff is concerned?
100%. Oh,
Mhm.
for sure, no doubt. Yeah, I think living
Was
in the
that something you had to prioritize? Like you had to say, oh shit, I better go do this.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And living in an apartment, I live, on the fifth floor, so I'm always on an elevator, coming and going all the time, passing people by, and I've met 3 or 4 male friends. Really haven't seen any females in here, believe it or not, in this whole apartment complex that really appealed to me, other than a couple that were way too young. I mean, they were in their probably mid 20s,
Mhm.
but I definitely kind of restarted a new social circle. It's not as deep as I want it to be. It's about 2 or 3 dudes. One guy just met a girl on Match, and about 3 or 4 months ago, and he's off and running. So I don't hang with him too much now. But I also have made a lot of female friends, even online. So that could be something if you want to extrapolate on that a little bit too. But
Okay. So that at least that's been something that's, would you say that if a guy is in your position or because a lot of guys are getting this right now. A lot of guys, when they get to be middle aged, they find themselves divorced. In fact, that's the prime demographic, right? It's a prime demographic for suicides as well, because
sure,
guys don't have that. They don't know what to do with themselves. They've been zeroed out. Now, it sounds like you've avoided that, but I think that that's probably more due to your character than anything else. It's like you knew this was coming. It wasn't like something that was a shock to you. And then fortunately you were red pill aware when it happened. So I would, not to pat myself on the back here, but I'm glad you were red pill aware, because it sort of gave you an expectation, or let at least you could see what was coming down the road, as opposed to having it like smack you in the face. So would you say that that should be, a priority for guys in your demographic, and like middle aged? And I mean, because that's what your blog is about, right? I mean, it's about
yeah.
being divorced after 50. So let's just say 45 to like 55 years old. I would say correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that should that have been your first step, or what would you have done differently? I guess maybe is the question I need to ask here, is because I know that when you first got into Tinder and online dating, you're sort of putting yourself back out there again, you were pretty frustrated. You were
Yes.
real frustrated about it.
Yes.
What were the things that were frustrating you about
W-
all of that?
well, you asked the first question, and
Mhm.
I'll address that one about just kind of getting back out and building social circles. What would I do different now? Definitely, I wouldn't have waited 4 or 5, 6 months to kind of get to know some dudes. I work out in a gym 6 days a week, and I get guys coming up to me all the time because I think they respect that I'm a very very fit guy, and they come up to me in not a homosexual way, and just, hey bro, what's up, whatever.
Mhm.
And I've just never really opened myself up to chatting with anybody in the gym all these years, and then I slowly started saying, say hi to the guy and chat with the guy, and all of a sudden I had a couple of gym buddies, and
Mhm.
then after a couple of gym buddies I started kind of feeling a lot more socially mature, because I've been with a woman and locked in a marriage and being a dad for 25 years. And that did help me build up my confidence to approach some women. And the second Latina woman I met organically. I walked right up to her in a bookstore, and she had 2 kids, but she was so smoking hot that I didn't care about the kids. I just went straight up to her, and 4.5 months later, we dated and had a great time. And she was actually separated like me at the time, so we were both in a very similar situation of not legally being married. So I proved to myself that yes, I could approach women and be successful.
Mhm.
And that was really probably the first woman I think I really intentionally approached. I got it, boom,
Mhm.
done. So it wasn't like it took me 10 approaches and the 11th one the girl was open to me. It was
Mhm.
the first approach. I had Rolo. I will say, for anybody listening, buy all of your books. I kid you not, dude. Your books they awaken me, man.
Mhm.
And I read them still to this day. They're on my coffee table, all
Yeah.
3 of them.
A lot of people consider them living texts, and yeah, that's another good
Buy
example. It's
your
like,
books,
I
man.
always I always tell guys, I said, you will not just read the Rational Male and put it back on your shelf. You will
Oh,
keep
no.
coming back to it, and you will come back to it at different points in your life. And here you are doing exactly
And
that.
I've got a books on tape too, so I
Right.
listen to it in my car.
Right. Now, a lot of guys in the chat here are already coming up with this. They're saying, okay, well, you shouldn't get involved with a single mother. Okay, well, at 55 years old, and was going to be my next question here, is like, what do you see the sexual marketplace like at your age?
It's
Like
it's
you,
brutal.
yeah, I was gonna say, because a lot of guys, they say, "Oh, you shouldn't date a single mother." Well, the thing is they're all single mothers then, right? I mean,
Right.
they're all. Is that? Am I correct in assuming
Correct.
that?
Correct. Well, especially in that age bracket, and again, I did not know when I approached her. I don't think she told me that first interaction, that engagement, that she was still married. So I wasn't like trying to break up some marriage,
Hmm.
and then she came on strong to me after the first day and wanted to spend time with me.
Hmm.
And we were both in the same boat. I was separated. She was separated. She was definitely headed to divorce. I was
Hmm.
definitely headed to divorce. So I don't feel like I did really anything wrong there. And really, hey, I was separated at the time. I wasn't legally divorced, but I'm on my own. The marriage is over. I'm not going to sit in an apartment and just wither away. That's
Hmm.
not even my personality. I'm an alpha male. I'm going to go out and
Hmm.
conquer again.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here, because I don't think a lot of guys really understand the unique challenges that you have when you get to be that age and you have to put yourself back into the sexual marketplace. You have really two choices: just sort of curl up and die, or go out there and do something about it. And you have to work with what you've got right there.
Yeah.
Now, is it possible for, like, if you had the opportunity, would you date a woman who's like in her late 20s?
If I had the opportunity, absolutely. I mean, if I
Hmm.
if I knew what her, and anybody listening is probably going to say, well, she's looking for a sugar daddy.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to ever do that. I truly would not do that. It's just, I mean, I was the sole provider of my family for 25 years and sort of felt like a sugar daddy. Hey, I filled my role. I did it to the best of my abilities. My family lived a great life, but I was the full contributor of the income, and so I'm not doing that again.
Hmm.
I'm looking for a partner. I'm looking for women that are independent and successful financially. So if a 26, 28-year-old came up to me and she had a job and she had a head on her shoulders, I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna.
So I think a lot of guys don't really appreciate that, because if you got a woman who's like 28, 29 years old, she is usually is entering into a phase of her life where she wants to settle down, or she wants to start a family. She wants to
Yeah,
go through the phase that you have already come through.
sure.
That you've already, like, for let's say from 30 to 45, that 15-year stretch right there where you're having kids, you're building a life, you're doing something a little bit more, well, I should say, doing something different than what you were doing when you were in your 20s. That experience has already happened for you. So
Yeah.
you've already come through that. So you've got two challenges here. The first one is that even if you met a woman who was childless, even if you met a girl who was like that, she's still going to, her biological clock
For
is
sure.
ticking, right? And
Yes.
she's going to want to start something like that. There are not many men of your age, your demographic, who want to go and relive that whole
No.
thing all over again. Because, I mean, really, what's going to happen? You're going to have another 20-year-old kid, and you're going to be, what, 70?
No.
75 years old. See, and so there's that unique challenge to it. But then there's the other side of that, which is the part I want to get to here is you get to the side where you can go out with a woman and you are in a position where you can be sexually selective,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
um, and you can go out with a woman who's 40, 45 years old. Now, the challenge with these women is that they've already come through that as well. And
Yeah.
now they're single, and they're single for a reason, right? Usually, I'm not, I don't know what the demographic, I don't know what the actual statistics are for this, but um, statistically, I would guess that if you are meeting a woman who's between 40 and 45 years old, she's already had her children, she's already come through that, and she's probably was a woman who initiated her own divorce, because 70% of women initiate the divorce.
Hmm.
And so now you're dealing with somebody who's got a history to her. And
Yes.
so I think that's what people always say, that, well, you don't want to date anybody who has red flags in a history. Well, what do you do? And this is your question here. What do you do to, I don't want to say vet, but what do you do to select these women? And what are you looking for, given those parameters right now? What are you looking for?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because I think it's the books I've read, all your books, and some other books as well. Your books are my staple, but I've really become a strong red pill aware man. Really didn't really understand the whole alpha male thing. I mean, obviously I knew the term, but when I started self reflecting, I thought I'm an alpha, 100%,
Mhm.
no doubt. And I think that also sort of defined myself a little more. Where being married, you just don't look at it that you're a dad, you're a husband, you're all these things. But now I'm single in the marketplace. I wanted to define myself again. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, who am I? What am I? And I thought, yeah, I've busted my ass to stay in great shape. I'm not afraid to wear fitted clothes or walk out in a tank top or shorts. Bring it on. The confidence level is high at that point, but it's like, how is the marketplace going to accept me?
Mhm.
Because I am a middle-aged guy. I do have wrinkles on my face. The sun's gotten to me. I still have a full head of hair, and it's not gray either. So that
Mhm.
does make me look a little bit younger along with my physique. But it definitely was a situation where I wanted to know what I was about first, so that I could, when I hit the marketplace, I knew what I brought to the table,
Mhm.
on my own, just inside my own head. Even I just thought I need to know what I bring to the table. And I think on the first couple of dates I went to, God, I felt like a 18-year-old all over again. I didn't even know what to. The very first date I went on, I kid you not, I was so nervous. I thought, I don't even know what I'm gonna say to this woman, because it's the first time in 25 years I've been in contact with another female.
Mhm.
And men, listen to this, need to understand it's going to be an adjustment. And I picked up quickly because I just hit it hardcore. I mean, I was dating, 5 or 6 different women a week, if not more sometimes, and just rapid fire.
Mhm.
But typically, I would meet them, no chemistry, no attraction, goodbye, next. Meet them, no attraction, goodbye, next. And I had a lot of my friends just say, "Dude, slow the hell down." But I was bored, and I
Mhm.
wasn't, spending hundreds of dollars a night on these women. I mean, it was, every once in a while I'd take a woman to a nice dinner, and that was $100 for sure. But
Mhm.
on average, I was spending 20, $30 on a couple of drinks, and I've met some nice people. But I'm very, very, very particular on the
The
physical
physical
aspect.
sides, yeah.
Oh,
So
very
that
particular.
that was gonna be my next question here is, okay, so but before I get to that, so it sounds to me like you're spinning plates right now. You're or
Yeah.
dating non-exclusively,
Yes.
and it sounds like you're doing it very efficiently and very pragmatically. I mean, at least you're getting into like. But what I wanted to throw out here is that on one of your posts, you're talking about how to avoid fat fishing, which I think is which is a great a great excuse me, a great term. Like, don't get fat fished. Um, we'll get to that here in just a second. But like when you are dating non-exclusively, when you're out there, what do you find? What do you? What are I would take it you're not looking for a long-term relationship at this point, considering everything about your past. But what do you think that women are? What should say? What are you finding that women are looking for most right now? What are they? What
Oh
when they
boy.
come and they talk to you?
Yeah.
Why do they accept you or why do they reject you?
Um, well, they rejected me because the first probably 20 women I dated, which that happened probably in about a 3-week period, and no joke, um, I was trying to get in their pants, all 20 of them,
Mhm.
and was very sexually aggressive. Really, I mean, but again, I had 3 or 4 women that went right along with it, all the way to the point of engaging in sex, and then they just sort of threw their hands up in total frustration, going, "I'm not this kind of woman. I can't do this. I just can't do this."
Mhm.
And that happened to me 3 or 4 times. And those women, because again, I truly am not the kind of man that would have sex with just anybody. I really have fairly high standards, and to the point where I can't even get physically attracted unless they're at a certain level of body type,
Mhm.
and all that. And so I knew a lot of them weren't even in my wheelhouse, but 2 or 3 of them were. And one in particular, I can remember, she was 55-year-old ex-model. So she was my age, by the way, 6 foot tall, beautiful body, super great body. And I had her down at the bottom of my apartment complex and all going into it. And she was like, I got to leave. And she literally stomped off and left and sent me a text message the next morning. I'm not that type of girl. I really like you. I'm very attracted to you, but I can't do this.
Mhm. And
And
why do you think she felt like that? Why would she
I,
why are most women like this? I mean, of
yes,
this age,
yes,
are they like really
yes.
so do they believe that they are so particular that they're in such a position to select for men that they can turn that down?
No, no, Rolo. It's not them feeling particular.
Mhm.
It's them feeling. A lot of them. What I've found out in the marketplace for me is that a lot of these women, and maybe they went through their their stage, like early on in their divorce, after the divorce was over, where they were out having sex with a lot of different guys. And what typically happens, and you've written this in your books, I mean, and everything in your book has played out for me.
Mhm.
Everything. I kid you not. I mean, your book is dead on, all your books. But I would say that when I meet a woman that's recently divorced, um, I could probably have sex with them by the second or third date for sure.
Mhm.
But a lot of these women I've met online have, and we can talk about what's happening online. I think men need to hear this, and they should go to my blog anyways to see what's happening online with what the women are doing. And I heard the women say men are doing the same thing. So it's not really a sex thing on
Mhm.
that part. It's both sides, but I just see the man's side of it. So I'm talking from the man's point of view. But the women that I met that were recently divorced that I could have had sex with, I was not attracted to for one reason or another. I met them online. They posted a couple of pictures, showed up not looking like their pictures, 20 or 30 pounds heavier than their pictures. And I instantly was turned off and actually a little bit pissed inside my head. They didn't
Mhm.
know that, but I was not happy. And that's happened to me probably 75% of the time with online dating. 75%,
75%. I was gonna ask that. So
maybe
would
more.
you so when we were talking about getting fat fished right there, how common is that? Like you're saying, are you
Very.
75% of the chicks that you meet online are overweight, or they build themselves as being a lot thinner than they are? You take the chance, and then suddenly you see this land whale.
I would say I would say 85 to 90%, I kid you not, of
Wow.
my experience, of my
Mhm.
own experience, has the woman now again, or could my standards be higher than a lot of men out there? Probably.
Mhm.
Probably. And so would they come up with a number of 65 to 70%? Probably, for
Mhm.
sure. So my number is going to be a little higher just because my standards are a little higher. But I've just learned all the tricks that women do online with their pictures to now know, after all of these dates and all of this frustration, now I know when I see certain pictures, I know exactly what they're doing.
Mhm. Okay. So, and these have all been women online. Have you met women away from in any other format? Have you met just chicks like socially, or have you been in a bar and just like did cold approaches, or
Oh, sure.
employed any kind of like formal game on them?
Sure. Yep. Oh, yeah. Well, the one Latina that was 46 and separated, that was in a bookstore. That
Hmm.
was just walking right up to her in a bookstore, broad daylight.
And did you use just like 'cause I know I worked on you with game for a little while. Did you like did you just go and do it, or what how did that go down?
I sat there for about 15 minutes and just kind of eyeballing her, and I saw these two young girls with her, the daughters,
Hmm.
and I just told myself, and this was early on in my my separation period, so I had not approached anybody organically. I had not approached one woman, so but I just sat there for about 15 minutes, and then I said, if I don't go up to this woman, I'm going to be pissed at myself. You never know what'll happen. And I said, fuck it.
Hmm.
And I walked up to her, and I forgot what my line was. It was pretty funny. It was something about her one kid took off and she looked kind of frantic. And I walked up to her and I think I said, "Do you want me to help you find your daughter?" And she looked at me and just, I mean, it just came to me, and
Hmm.
she quote unquote fell for it completely. She's like, "Oh my God, what did you just say?" And I said, "Well, it looks like you're a little upset and you're looking for your daughter. I'll help you find your daughter." And boom, there it was.
Uh,
There was my approach.
there you go.
Oh,
And so, but you didn't know she was single when you saw her though, right? You
no,
just
well, she
met her.
married. She was married, remember?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah. But you didn't know she was
no,
like separate. So you
no
just
ring.
basically cold approach, no ring, no. Okay.
Cold approach. She had no ring on, and very attractive Latina woman, and she ended up being
Mhm.
from Colombia, so that even made her sexier because when she talked, it was like, holy shit, just keep talking, just keep talking.
Just keep talking.
Yeah,
That's great. That's great.
yeah.
And so did that pan out into anything, or did she
Oh
turn
yeah,
her plate or something like that? Or
yeah. She turned in her plate for 4.5 months. Yeah, that was
Mhm.
very, very sexual. It was awesome. She was, very, very attracted to me, and but she was dealing with two kids. Her kids were 12 and 14, and she was living under the same roof with her husband because her husband took all credit cards away, took all her finances away, and she just kind of anchored down on the house. And so that's what really broke us up in the end. Is I opted out. I just said,
Mm.
because she started sort of venting with me about her ex, and I'd said, I'm not here to hear all that crap, and
Mhm.
and then I broke it off.
So yeah, I got a little too much. Yeah.
Yeah, just too much drama.
um, Dating outside the country, like a foreign, like going to like Southeast Asia or going to the Ukraine or something like that to meet women there? Or are you successful enough here in the U.S. that you wouldn't really? That's not something that's crossed your mind, or maybe it has.
Um, to go overseas just to approach women, no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good here. I'm totally good here. It's I've definitely gotten to a point in my kind of divorce life where um, I'm more confident offline than online. And not to say I'm not confident online, but I just know the game online now. I just know the game all the way, and it's a bullshit game. And I will tell you that having been online for about 6 months, I see the same women over and over and over again. And I will tell you, oh, do we lose our connection? No, I think we're losing our connection. Hey there.
Yeah, yeah. Now we're back up. Okay.
Okay, yeah, we lost connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying that I don't think I'd go overseas for that. I mean, I think I'm now at a stage where yeah, I'm confident enough to approach women for sure, but I definitely don't make a point to put myself out there enough. You know, enough visits to Whole Foods, enough visits to some of these places around here. But I feel pretty good right now. I'm in a pretty good place. I've got 6 or 7 different women that I'm dating right now. That I'm kind of um, most of them are kind of more kind of starting out as a friendship
Hmm.
more than anything. But there's 2 or 3 that are already starting to come on to me a little bit now. So we'll see where that goes. But I've got definitely 6 or 7 women right now that I can pick up the phone and call and go out with. So that's a pretty full plate right now. I think I'm pretty good with that.
Okay. If anybody in the chat can hear this, if you're picking this up, please let me know. I think you probably are. I'm looking at the there we go. Okay, good. Now it popped back on again. Yay. Okay. So I wanted to we can move on a little bit from this. So what do you see as the biggest challenge that you're dealing with right now? Like, because you've been doing this for 6 months now, and I think you've had some time to sort of evaluate what's going on. So, what's the kind of advice would you give to guys who are in your same position? Now, remember, a lot of these guys aren't going to be as physically fit as you are. They're not. A lot of dudes end up giving up at this point because they're not prepared. I think you were more uniquely prepared for this. So a lot of guys aren't necessarily going to be prepared. But what can guys expect?
Yeah. Well, I think the women are not as easily going to have sex with a dude, especially the ones that are kind of late 40s to 50s. Most of them have been divorced for a longer period of time,
Mhm.
2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and that's another red flag too, by the way. When I meet women that have been single for about 5 years, and I went out with one just the other night, and I've seen her on all the dating websites, by the way, and went out. She looked fine. She looked great. We were kissing in the parking lot afterwards, having a little bit of fun afterwards. But she they will not as openly engage in the physical. They will put their barrier up, and I'm sure you've got some phrases for it from your books. That they'll put a wall up and say, no, 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 you're not getting any of this for a while. We need to we need to, go on some dates. I'm not looking for a hook. The big one I get all the time, and you'll read this online on every profile is, no hookups, right? But what I
Mhm.
find funny about that is that a lot of these women online that say no hookups will have 2 or 3 pictures with their tits hanging out, wearing a bikini,
Mhm.
a camera above, shooting down on their tits. I mean, it's hysterical. It's like, okay, so you're gonna pen. I'm not here for hookups.
Mhm. So it's like the lure is out there.
Oh, for sure.
Like the obviously they're looking for attention, but also I think for what for their age demographic, I think this is really kind of interesting. Do you think that a lot of women in this age bracket still cling to the idea that they should have the sexual selectivity that they used to have when they were in their 20s?
Um, I don't think it's so much that. I think it's almost something of a value system for them, kind of. That's something that I'm still kind of trying to understand with the women, why they are the way they are at a certain age range of like mid to late 40s and definitely into the 50s for sure. I don't know if it's selective because I think a lot of them know that they're way to the end of the sexual marketplace,
Mhm.
way to the end. And I think what's happened with me and a lot of them is, and I've had a couple of female friends, really, really good female friends that know me, think that what's happening with a lot of the women that I go out with, because a lot of them haven't kept in shape, they get physically intimidated by me right the minute we meet.
Mhm.
And a lot of my female friends are saying, Mike, you're intimidating them. You're just intimidating them. So that's just the way it is.
Hmm. So, of the women that you're dating right now, how many of them are divorced and how many of them are never married, do you think?
I can tell you, uh, 6 are divorced, one never been married, and of the 6 that are divorced, most of them have been divorced 3 or more years. So there's your statistics right there. I think
Mhm.
maybe one, maybe one is about a year into her divorce, probably.
Mhm. How about, when it comes to their openness to sex early on, would you say that the ones who are recently divorced are more into it? Or is there any
Yes,
particularness? Like,
yes,
what's your experience with that?
yes, for sure. The ones that are recently divorced, they're going out and kind of sowing their oats for sure.
Mhm. They're
Um,
making up for lost time, making up for missing out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah, they're sowing their oats, and I would say that typically for a lot of the women, that'll go about a year to a year and a half from what I'm seeing out there. That'll go for about a year to a year and a half, and then they might go through one guy, two guys, three, four, who knows how many of the guys they go through, and then I think they really do kind of wake up one morning, and I don't know, I can't speak for them. I don't know if they think they're being whores or what they're being, but I think after about a year to a year and a half, I think they've kind of sowed their oats. They know they're not getting any younger, so now they're going to either try to find a beta for sure, but somebody that's going to just roll over and support them and be there for them. I think is what they're looking
See, it
for.
seems to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It seems to me, and I wrote about this in Preventive Medicine in my second book when I was doing the timeline, because I saw this pattern even before I met you. I saw this pattern amongst women is that when they go through their party years and then they go through epiphany phase and then they settle down with the beta and then they lose interest in the beta and then they try to recapture that old party years fun mentality that they had, only now they're late 30s, early 40s. It seems to me that when women get divorced, um, after all of this, that they almost repeat the cycle again, right?
Sure.
Maybe it's more condensed than it was when they were in their 20s, but they go through this kind of fun stage, I guess. Once they get divorced and they go, oh, I can have sex with whoever I want. That's when they turn into cougars, right? That's
Yes.
when they start looking for younger guys to just go and sow their oats with. Like, there's even that chick who was, I forget her name, but it was the Wild Oats Project girl
Oh,
who
geez.
decided she was never going to have kids, so she wanted to have an open marriage, and of course they ended up getting divorced. But she's just decided that she was going to make up for missing out, and that's what she did. But it seems like most women go through that stage, and then after, but like I said, it's more condensed. It's condensed down into like a couple of years, and
Hmm.
then once they've got that out of their system, that's when again they start looking for the stable guy who is going to
For sure.
put up with their bullshit, and forgive them of all their past indiscretions, forgive them of the fact that maybe they were married before and they've already had kids, and then they can't have any, they're trying to combine two lives in the long term after that is a really tall order. And I think you're seeing that right now. Am I off base there?
You're dead on. You're dead on.
I think that they kind of repeat that party years mentality.
Condensed.
Then they go through maybe a very short epiphany phase again in their, later on, and then they start looking for the guy who they're going to make wait, right? Then it's the guy who, it's like women will make more rules for betas, right? They'll break rules for alphas and they'll make more rules for betas. I think, would you say that the women that you have sex with earlier on are earlier on in their divorce at that point? Yeah. Yes. So there's like a sweet spot there for sex, right?
Oh yeah. If you catch them at the tail end of their divorce, the divorce gets legal and they're out on their own. If you catch them right there to about a year and a half,
their second party years, the second party phase.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. And it's funny because for a long time, it was basically through online dating, I was meeting these women that had been divorced for 3 or 4 or 5 years. So they had already gone through that phase. They had already gone through the epiphany phase. And now they're looking for the beta. Then they meet me. They know I'm not a beta. And they're like, okay, well, you're not going to work. You don't fit my rules. You don't fit what I'm looking for, even though there's a physical thing there. And and I found that over and over again, where these women are looking for that beta to settle down with. They're, especially the ones that are sort of 53, 54, 55 and above. Now there could be the odd one that just got on hormones and is going crazy sex wise.
But that was going to be my next question, is like some of these chicks are in their menopause or they're premenopausal.
Yeah.
Yep. So do you think that when they get into that menopause area that they are less sexual, like they've retired sexually, which might explain why they want that commitment first, or they want that comfort first?
Yeah, the 1 6-foot model, and I actually texted her a couple of days ago. It's pretty funny. It had been like 6 months since we talked or whatever, and we didn't have a falling out. With just one crazy night until 1 o'clock in the morning, and then she stomps off. I can't do this. I can't do this. And she was. And then I asked her, I'm assuming this is appropriate on this show.
Sure.
I asked her, I said, you're going to go home and take care of yourself, aren't you? She said, you're damn right. She said, you're damn right I am. And so I texted her next morning. I said, did you take care of business? And she sent me a smiley face, right? And then I started playing on that. And then she said, I think we're in different phases. I'm looking for a commitment, and you're obviously looking for the physical. I really like you, and I think last night was a lot of fun. And I got that, Rolo, a bunch of times where it got hot and heavy with these women, hot and heavy, almost to the point of engaging in sex. And they would send me the text the next day that, wow, I can't believe I did what I did with you last night in that Starbucks parking lot at midnight. I can't believe it. It was a lot of fun, but I think we're in different phases. I got that text message. Oh my God, probably from 10 different women.
It sounds to me, okay, like a lot of guys who are listening to this, who come from a game set, will say that you just didn't know how to close it, or you just didn't know how to get it to like past LMR, last minute resistance, or something like that. I'm gonna say maybe, but the other thing is I don't think that they understand the particulars of women in this particular demographic within the 45 to 55-year-old range. Remember that getting a girl past last minute resistance when you're running like mystery method or something like that, and you're in your 20s, for a 25-year-old girl, right? Let's just round off the numbers there. Is going to be a whole lot different than a woman who's 45 or 55 years old, because they have already had this history with other men, with having kids. I mean, these are women who've probably given birth already, right? Okay. Yeah. These are women who've gone through all of this. So they're returning to that, to a phase of their lives that they probably never thought that they were going to return to again, but now they are. And so getting into it to the degree where they're going to commit to having sex with another guy that is not that. I think that there needs to be sort of this degree of comfort with them that most other women, like of different age brackets, don't really have.
Sure.
Like, I
Sure.
understand. I think that I'm still of the opinion that arousal is all about urgency. It's all about anxiety. It's all about that uncertainty. That's sexual. That's why you call it sexual tension. There still has to be that tension there. I get that, but I think that women in that demographic kind of cock block themselves almost,
God, that's a good
you
way to
know.
put it. That's perfect.
And so, like, I'm looking here, guys are like, "Oh man, a 50-year-old girl, yuck." Well, okay, fine, I understand that, but look, we're having this conversation so that this ain't you, okay, so
Right.
that this doesn't happen to you, young buck, okay,
Yeah.
bucko. But what I was going to say is that, 45, 50 years old, there's a lot of guys who are red pill that are coming into this right now that are just, I got a guy that I counsel who's in his 70s right now. And he's looking back on all this, and he's become awakened while married, but he's also been awakened while 70. Okay.
Jeez.
That's really tough on a guy. So that's why I want to have these conversations, because nobody else is having this conversation. Nobody else is talking about this from a red pill perspective. That's why I thought this would be a really good, unique show. It's also what I want to talk about when I get to the Patriarchs Convention, 21 convention coming up on May 3rd through the 5th. So please check out I have a link to it on my blog. If you are interested in that, is for guys who are married, who want to get married, why I don't know, who are divorced, who are in families, who want to start families. There is I like to think that there's a broad application for red pill awareness, and this is one of them. So that's why we're having this conversation. Should you? Okay, let me put this out there. If you are in your 20s, I'm not expecting you to go have sex with a 50-year-old. Okay, there. So now we've cleared the air. Fine, let's have our conversation. So, anyways, let's see. We're got about 15 minutes left here. What else? What else have you been writing about on your blog? I know we've talked about fat fishing, and watching out for that kind of stuff. So right now, it seems to me like all you want to do is just spin plates. Is there anything? Do you see yourself maybe wanting to change that and getting into something that's maybe you'll never get married again? But do you see yourself wanting to get into a long-term relationship soon?
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No doubt. I mean, I'm definitely, I'm having a lot of fun. But for me to really kind of make a commitment to a woman, she's she's got to be up there. She's got to be up there, and I just haven't seen anything even remotely close. And I'm not going to meet her online. I think I've come to that conclusion that she's not going to be online, because there's just such a delusion online. And I don't know, Rolo, if you wrote this post or one of the other guys online wrote this post, but this needs to be talked about. So a woman online that looks like about a 7 with her pictures is probably a 4 to 5 in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So men online need to understand this. Women know what they're doing with their pictures. They know what they're doing. And I've written blog posts about this, and I hope all the guys listening, even the younger guys, go read it for the entertainment value. But there's certain things that women do. The fat fished one, the great, and I posted the girl's picture on my blog. I cut out her head, so I saved her.
Mm-hmm.
But her body is on there, and you'll see when you look at the picture. I mean, just remember, she's probably like early 40s, and I'm a 55-year-old guy. She sent 3 bikini shots to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't ask for it. Another thing that women will do, by the way, and I don't know if this is in your book anywhere. I've had more women send me pictures of them in bikinis and bra and panties that I've never asked for, never requested for any of those pictures, but I got them texted to me. And many of them were not, in my ballpark. I mean, could I have had sex with all of them? Probably, for sure. But, because I mean, they're not sending those pictures for just shits and giggles. They wanted to show me what they had.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say overall, online, the women that look like a 7, for the men listening, just be prepared. They're going to be about a 4 to 5 when you meet them,
Mm-hmm.
across the board, because their pictures are either they're 2 or 3 years old, they're a low quality picture, blurred or low quality, or they're from a distance. And if you see women that post only headshots, they are hiding their body 100%. 100%. So if you see even the cutest girl, and boy, I'm going to probably do a post showing the difference in one woman. I don't know if I can do this, so gosh dang it, because it'll be ever. I'd have to show her face, but you see one picture and you think, oh, she's pretty cute, and then the girl was stupid enough. The woman was stupid enough when you scroll through her pictures to see one near the end, and you put them side by side, and you're looking at two different women.
Mm.
You are truly looking at two different women, and I can if I'm a betting man, the last picture, the not so good picture, is her real picture, what she looks like now.
So do these women, I mean, do they get offended if you say you don't look like what you put your picture as, or do you think that they expect you to like love what's on the inside, like, oh, it shouldn't be about what's on the outside, it should be on the inside. Are you getting that kind of mentality from these women?
Well, when I go on a date, I've been a pretty good guy most of the
Like,
time.
how do you get out of it?
Yeah, but the one that fatfished me, I knew I was going to end that date after one drink, and I knew it'd be about a 15-minute date. And when she saw me in person, she knew exactly what she did. She knew it
Mhm.
because I saw the look on her face. And we sat down, and it was the first time that within about 5 minutes, I said, "You know what really pisses me off about women online?" And I was wearing a fitted T-shirt at the time, and I think when I said that phrase, I might have flexed a little bit when I said it, because your eyes went big and bulgy on me. I said,
Uh-huh.
"You know what really pisses me off about women online?" And I said, "Women that post pictures and show up completely different than their pictures, and women that say they're fit and athletic, and when they show up, they're not even remotely fit and athletic." And I looked right through her skull bone, and she said, "I get it. I know what you're saying." But she
Mhm.
did not realize I was talking to her.
About her, yeah, and so you want an example of solipsism.
Oh my God.
You want an example.
Oh my
You
God. Yeah.
want an example of that. So that was one thing. The other thing you were talking about was age. Now,
Yeah.
you've learned that you've had to lie about your age. Why don't you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, it depends on the website you're on, but if you're like on, Match.com and some of those, and those, the women are really, really looking for a relationship, or so they say. So when you put your age, that one, they're going to find out real quick if you're lying. They're going to ask you because a lot of them have had very, very bad experiences, from what I've heard, of men that say they're divorced but they're married, men that say they're 40 years old but they show up bald and 55, men
Mhm,
that say they're in shape and show up with a pot belly. So the women have experienced the same exact thing. So I think because of everybody's online experience on websites like Match, they're gonna if you show up a little bit sketchy from your pictures to your real life, they're gonna full blown ask you right there. So everybody's wasted their time.
mhm,
But on Tinder, I put myself at 45, but I'm finding out with Tinder, and I've matched with quite a few women. And again, not a lot of them I'm really attracted to, but even on Tinder, I think it's a younger app. It's for younger people.
mhm,
Um, there's a lot of women in their 50s, and maybe they're cougars. None of them are in shape. None of them are to my liking. But I think overall, a website or an app like Tinder is more for the 20, 25 year olds, probably,
mhm.
because I've really not really been impressed with Tinder, and so I don't really spend much time on Tinder. But then you've got Plenty of Fish, which a lot of people have called it Plenty of Whales.
Plenty of whales.
Plenty of
Yeah.
whales, and that is probably a pretty true statement as well. But Plenty of Fish, for the 50-year-old man listening out there, I would spend more of your time on that website than I would Match, for
Mhm.
sure, because you're going to probably find women a little bit more open to being more physical quicker than on Match.
Okay, I've heard this a lot now, and not even necessarily from older guys, but younger guys as well say that, and there's been books written on this, that there is a complete one-sided advantage to women on Tinder, on
Oh,
online dating.
for
Do
sure.
you do you experience how has your experience been with that?
Well, I'll tell you what it is, and I've heard from the women. And the 40-year-old Latina girl that I dated, fit girl, good-looking girl, she said she paused her match when we started dating,
Mm.
and she wanted to let me proudly know that, which then whatever, that's fine, that's cool. But she was sitting on 140 messages in 3 days.
Wow.
And she was on a 1 to 10. I'm a pretty harsh guy. She was probably an 8. She was an 8. Real, real cute, good body, super nice, Hispanic. So spoke great English, very, very good English, but she was sitting on 140 messages, and she said to me, Mike, it's overwhelming. It's like a full-time job. And I've heard other women say that it's a full-time job. So I think it's the women get hammered. If they're even remotely cute, they get hammered big time. And I think a lot of guys, including me, because like on a website like Match, I'll put my age, my real age, because I don't care. And we don't even fit their age criteria. So you don't even come up on a search for them.
Yeah, I was going to say, my good friend Carl from Black Label Logic, he has been actually writing quite a bit about game and online game recently, and he was saying that I believe it is OkCupid. It might be Match as well, probably most of them, but they use an algorithm. So if you get a certain number of posts, if you get a certain number of posts, it ranks you at a different ranking than, say, so basically, if you're a 10, you're going to get more 10s, right? So if people think you are like an 8, it's going to rank you at an attractiveness level at that particular. It's like a, forget what he was saying. It's like baseball ranking, or it's like a tournament ranking. Like if you it's chess, that's what it is. It's chess tournament ranking. So if you are a class, B player, you're going to get ranked with class B players, so that it's a challenge for you, kind of thing. So they're not going. It's almost like they enforce what's called assortative mating. So if they think you're an 8, if everybody online, unanimously thinks you're an 8, you're only going to get matched with other people who are 8s as well.
Right. And that 8 online, remember, the scale is probably a 5 to 6 offline. For sure. For sure. I can tell you that very, very strongly, that the women that post their pictures, and a lot of women, I went out with a woman the other day, and she was in her 50s, and very, very attractive, very successful professionally. And that really was kind of a turn on me. I was like, wow, this girl, she's crushing it. She's makes $200,000 a year. And she proudly told me that. Well, great. That's awesome. And so we met, and she knew what she did. She knew what she did, because she showed up and had just a massive amount of wrinkles on her face, a massive amount of wrinkles on her neck, a massive amount of wrinkles on her arms, and there wasn't a wrinkle on her face or body online. Not one. Not one.
Shopped.
Shopped in a big way. So online, she was 53, and she looked as good as any 45-year-old would look, easy. And then offline, she looked every bit at her age, if not more. And that was another difficult date for me to go through. And she knew it. She knew it. She knew that we were mismatched the minute we met in person. So
now, what do you? And we're coming up on 2 hours here, so we're gonna wrap this up. But I want to ask you another thing: is when it comes to these women's kind of mental state. Obviously, they've all got baggage of some sorts. Okay, so that's something I think that you're going to have to cope with. You're gonna have to accept that as part of the game for what you're with. Now, I just wanted to get an idea what their mental state was, but I also wanted to know what is the youngest you've dated so far?
37. 37, and then it kind of floats around into kind of the mid to late 40s. But a lot of the mid to late 40 women have teenage kids, and but they'll let you know very quickly if they're interested in you. What's happened to me is they'll tell me, oh, it's 50-50 shared custody. I have my certain weekends. She'll tell you if she's interested in you, she'll tell you very quickly that she's got time. She's got time for you. Now, would that be a long-term situation for me? Probably not.
So it's fairly easy to gauge interest with these chicks.
Yeah. They're pretty open. It's just for me, I've got high standards, very, very high standards. I mean, I probably could have had sex with probably 30 women by now, maybe more, but most of them just weren't my liking at all. So I wasn't gonna do
it. Do most of them seem like they feel like they're entitled to your attention, or do they seem like, oh God, I can't believe I actually got a date with a guy? Thank God. What's their mental state when you're meeting them?
Well, I think for me, in my particular specific situation, because of them knowing that they sort of misrepresented themselves online, it's a very most of my dates with those women have been very uncomfortable
Mhm.
because they know what they did. We show up and it's over. It's over the minute started. So I think the mental state of a lot of these women are um, they they're trying to put themselves in their best light to get the dates, and then when the date happens, it's a pure blow up. And that's why I met a woman about 6 months ago, early on, that had been on the dating sites for 10 years.
Mhm.
10
Damn.
years. And then another woman, 6.5 years. So it
Hmm.
goes to tell you that I think the people that are gravitating online, and I hate to put myself in that class because I'm online now, but I really don't feel like I'm that person. But I think a lot of people that are online are really delusional, and they really think that what they bring to the table is more than what they really bring to the table. Therefore, why would they be single 10 years later and still on these online websites?
Right. Yeah, they're single for a reason, or they're divorced for a reason. That was actually what I was going to ask you, is like a lot of women who are in that situation, they have baggage, they are divorced. Is it easy to judge like why they are single, or why they've been on the site for 10 years, or why they've been doing what they've been doing for 6 years? Is it easy to check that out, or is this something that you kind of have to drag out of them? Or maybe this is like, are these like landmines that you have to watch out for?
I think all of the above, probably a little bit. I mean, I think
Mhm.
if you're an insightful man and you've done your work, your red pill, you've read your books, and you've done your homework, you'll catch it early on, very early on, and you'll catch it pretty much in the first date. I
Mhm.
think if you're not red pill aware, or you're just understanding the whole red pill mentality, then I think so there's some landmines involved for sure. I definitely think you're going to walk away not understanding the situation, where for me, I go in, and in the first date, I just know right away.
Mhm. Yeah.
I literally know right away.
And hypergamy doesn't change. It doesn't stop. Just because, and people ask me this before, they'll say, well, when a woman gets to be in her menopause years, then things change. No, the system is still installed. The firmware is still installed in that woman. There was a guy. I was reading an article on this guy who was, I think this couple was in their 70s, and the guy had been like this dutiful beta, this woman's best friend, and so suddenly, like, I think her second husband died, and so she finally just out of the blue said, hey, I'm gonna I'll finally marry you, kind of thing, right?
Oh, geez.
And I was just gonna say, is like, the mental, whether a woman can effectively, put that hypergamy into practice is a whole different story. But the firmware doesn't change. Even when you get into 45, 50, whatever. That's why we were just talking about, when a woman goes from being, her party years through her epiphany phase, and then she just settles down. That doesn't change. The firmware is still installed. So I think that's one thing that guys in your demographics still need to sort of wrap their heads around. One last question, then we're going to wrap up here, is what do you want to do next? I mean, would you advise like learning game? I know that you're doing online right now. Are you going to mix things up? I know you're writing a blog right now. The link to the blog is in the description below. Also, you can find Marco's blog on my blog list on the Rational Mail right now. So if you have any questions for him, here also on Twitter, why don't you put, what's your Twitter handle now?
Gosh, I sent it to you. Let me see.
I'll post. I'll tell you what. I'll post his Twitter handle in the description as well. So if you have any questions for him, or you can just look at my Twitter and you'll find him. Anyways, so what is it that you want to do next? I mean, is there? This is almost like a big experiment. That's one of the reasons I like talking with you, is because you give me an information for a demographic and for an area of life that I think a lot of people just kind of ignore, because most people, when they're talking about red pill awareness and all this, they're always talking about, well, starting a new family, or they're or how do I run game, or how do I get my girlfriend back, or it's usually this this area of study for men who are younger, but
Mm-hmm.
you have a unique aspect, or you have a unique understanding of this. So what do you plan to do next?
Well, I definitely plan to expand on my blog for sure, because I really do feel like I've gone at such a rapid pace of this kind of first year of my divorce life, that I think I can, bring a lot of insight for men that are either contemplating divorce, going through divorce, and then maybe, post divorce, that are in that sort of 45, 55 and above. Um, I enjoy writing, and so I
Mhm.
definitely invite people to go to the blog for sure, and definitely comment. I'd love to start a community for sure. I think that would be very very cool, and hopefully I'll do more things with you, Rolo, and
Mhm.
maybe get invited to a few things. I have no
Mhm.
problem
For
speaking,
sure.
doing some speaking stuff, but
I would like to see you do take this information and like put it into some kind of formal, I don't want to call it game, but I guess maybe that's the best word for it. Like turning it into something that, guys can expect in the, what they can expect from that particular time in their life. What can they expect from being, divorced and then getting themselves back into it? Like I said, one of the reasons I wanted to even do this is because I want guys to be able to avoid getting zeroed out. I want them to avoid putting a gun in their mouth because they think that it's hopeless. And at least that they can, a lot of guys just simply just, curl up in a little ball, right? They become isolationists. They don't want to do anything. They think that it's hopeless. It's nihilistic. They become despondent. And granted, you're a very unique case, but at least from your case, we can sort of determine things that are going on for guys in this age range, because nobody talks about this. Nobody really, wants to codify anything, I guess. As to what you can expect and what you want to get involved in. I know Rich Cooper is in his mid 40s, I believe, and he's dating and stuff. But he really is more like he's really more about being cautionary. Like he
yeah,
has
yeah,
his blog about avoiding the train wreck. He wants guys to avoid the disaster before they get to it. Okay, great. Well, what happens if you're already there? What happens if you're already past that? So I think that sort of gives you have a unique take on this. So anyways, thanks for joining me.
thanks
Thanks
for
for
having me.
everybody coming in here. Is there anything else you wanna throw out there for everybody before we go?
Yeah, the Twitter is at 50 divorced. So it's at
Mhm.
50 divorced with a D on the end is the Twitter. Yeah, so I definitely would love to engage with people on Twitter, positive or negative,
Mhm.
depending on what people say. I've got thick skin. I'm a big boy. So, speak your mind for sure. But if anybody wants any advice, definitely hit up the blog. But yeah, I definitely think the next phase for me, you asked that question, was I'll definitely work on some game for sure. I mean, I definitely have game anyways, but
Mhm.
but I think I'll definitely spend a little bit more time in the real world. The online world is just a very delusional world for both
Mhm.
sides. Very, very delusional. It's not one that it's not a world I like to live in, anyways, because I'm a very self-aware man myself. So I definitely, my next phase will be more kind of organic stuff. Going out, approaching women. In coffee shops. At Whole Foods. In the gym. The gym is my domain because I've been in it for 35 years.
Mhm.
So, and I think I'm going to probably spend a lot more time, approaching women in the gym. You just got to be real careful how you approach them in the gym, because the women in the gym, if they're fit, they're serious about it. So you've got to pick the right time and maybe start with a smile one day, then the next day, maybe say something and work your way into it, not just boom, walk up and just hit it, because
Mhm.
you any fit girl that's working out is going to get pissed and think they're going to tell you to get out of my face for sure.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, exactly.
the approach in a gym is much much different, which I can do a
Yeah.
whole blog post on that too someday.
Yeah, that'd be good. All right. Well, anybody wanting to get more information from Marco, you can just check my blog roll. Also, check the description below. I've got the link to his blog there. Coming up on Thursday, we have the Red Man group that is going to be the Patriarchs edition. Myself, I will be on it. Hunter Drew will be on it, and I believe we have 3 other guys that are going to be on that. Check the Redman Group website for the description for that. I don't think Hunter hasn't given me the description yet, but we're going to be doing that on Thursday. And then, of course, the Redman Group Prime is going to be on Saturday. 11 a.m. Eastern. So check that out. And then also look for me on the Pat Campbell Show on Friday mornings. You can check my Twitter for the announcements for when that is, but usually it is on Friday mornings at 9:05 Eastern. I'm on with him for about an hour. That is a terrestrial radio show. And then, of course, I always do Red Pill 101 on Sundays at 4:30 Eastern with Pat once again. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. And I'm going to probably be doing some more just solo stuff myself. I think I'm going to dedicate one day a week to that. So look for that. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to my channel or the Red Man Group channel. And then also make sure you hit the alert button too, so you get alerted to when these things come up. I think I'm pretty good about alerting people. So anyways, all right, guys, thank you very much. And I'll see you on the next show.